There was a time when clocks only had one hand. People were content just to know what hour it was. Before that, appointments were made just by the day. I'll see you on Wednesday. As far as what time, it wasn't necessary, just sometime. Today it's very likely if you look at your watch that you have a second hand. It might be that you have some sort of feature that you can divide it into tenths of a second, maybe hundredths. But the fact that we can tell time more precisely today does not necessarily mean that we know what time is or how to spend it. It seems that Jehovah has, as the great timekeeper, has factored time into our lives' purpose. In fact, if you take the Bible and open to the very first words, you get the sense of timekeeper, and that time starts. You notice Genesis, the first chapter and the first verse, where the Bible begins by saying, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." Now, historically, of course, this is not the beginning. There are other scriptures older than this. John 1:1 refers to a time much farther than this, where it says, "In the beginning the Word was." This would take us back before the creation of the earth. So there are a variety of beginnings. But in the beginning, that is, in the beginning of the history of the planet, God created first the heavens and the earth. And our discussion here describes what I mean by not only the physical planets, but the structure and the systems of things. If we continue in verse 14, we find that Jehovah now wanted to empower man to be able to chronicle these events himself. And have a system that no matter where you were on the planet, you could have a sense of time that would match other people living on the same planet. Verse 14 says, "And God went on to say, let luminaries come to be in the expanse of the heaven, to make a division between the day and the night, and they must serve as signs and for seasons and days and years." And so Jehovah put these great luminaries high enough that everybody could see it. Not just a tower in the center of town with a clock on it. That would serve well if you were downtown. But he put it in the heavens where everyone could see the phases of the moon, the sunrise and sunset. And so he gave us this concept of time. Scientists have been struggling with this idea of what is time. But for our discussion, we have to limit it, of course, to where we are on the planet. And Jehovah gave us this sense. But he also is involved, because notice Genesis chapter 5, verse 5. Kind of a curious verse. I don't know if you do this when you read the Bible, but you notice it says in Genesis 5:5, all the days that Adam that he lived amounted to 930 years, and he died. Now my question is, who was counting? How did you know? You know how old you are because somebody tells you when you were born, and then you start counting. At some point, you get a concept of time, and then you pick it up from there. Maybe it's when you're 6 or 7. Little children have a vague concept. I remember this one little boy in Alabama. He said, he was visiting, like our young brother back there. We asked him, "How long are you going to be here?" He said, "Well, I'm going to be here another day and another night and another day and another night and another day and another night." I said, "What day are you going to leave?" He said, "Cartoon day. That's what I'm going to leave." Hadn't quite got the idea of a calendar and all that. But from his perspective, he was starting to figure out how time worked. Well, Adam was the same. Adam, we see the creation of Adam with a full-grown body. That doesn't mean that his powers of perceptions were implanted in him fully developed. He had to develop these. You have to see the sunrise and set, and to know that that's going to happen on a regular basis, and to see the phases of the moon. And so by the time he figured that out, he would have lost track of how long he'd been here. So obviously, Jehovah was counting and keeping records. Time was moving forward. Amazing concept that Jehovah has given humans this marvelous ability to know where we are in the stream of time. And the heavens play a marvelous role in this. And sometimes it is absolutely amazing what man can figure looks at the world around you. You get a sense that time has gone on much longer than you first imagined as you were a child. In fact, that's one of the gifts that Jehovah has given to the human family in Ecclesiastes chapter 3. And this is a fascinating gift that humans alone possess. It's not shared with the rest of the creation. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 11. It says, everything he has made pretty in its time, even time indefinite he has put in their hearts. Mankind may never find out the work that the true God has made from start to finish. The New English Bible says that Jehovah has given man a sense of time past and time future. Or Byington says God has put even eternity into our minds. And it's interesting as man uses this ability, and again, you have to develop this sense. Or maybe you're talking about different events in your life as going on. And if you have a small child with you, like your son who's 6, 7 years old, and you're talking about events, and invariably it happens where the child will ask, well, where was I? And you have to explain to him that you weren't here yet. And the first time a child hears that, you see this real puzzled look. What do you mean I wasn't here yet? What do you mean there was a time when you were alive and I wasn't? And you see it develops, you get this sense of your place in time, where you fit in to the grand scheme of time. Now some people don't really ever grasp that. Their world centers on them. And get a sense of time past and time future. It's always time now. They're very impatient. Things have to be done now in their way at their time. They're very unhappy. And if that's our outlook, we probably will be unhappy much of our life. Jehovah's given us this amazing sense of time past and time future, and the ability to observe the world around us. The Creator book makes a wonderful point that if the Earth had been anywhere else in the Milky Way, our galaxy has this swirl, and we're out toward the edge, but not totally toward the edge. If they put us somewhere else, we would not have the sky as we know it, because if you put us too close to the edge, we would have no stars. You look out because the stars would be just too far away. Put us in this right place, and as we look at stars, there was a man named Doppler who studied the effect of moving objects, moving light. But particularly moving objects, you see that in the radar, especially when you hear about tornadoes and the Doppler radar in TV stations. Well, the Doppler effect indicates that things coming towards you have a certain feature, but things moving away from you react differently. For instance, if you go down here to Homestead, to the racetrack, and as you sit in your bleacher seat and hear cars go around the track, you think that the sound is changing. Now, the motor is making the same sound, especially on large stretches. As it accelerates and decelerates, it makes a different sound. But through maybe the mile stretch in front of the grandstand, it makes the same sound, but it doesn't appear that way because of Doppler effect. You will hear the I think I did better this week. You get that because sound coming towards you, the sound waves started to pack in, so to speak. They pack, which seems to elevate the sound. As they go away from you, the sound waves sort of spread out, giving it the impression that it's a lower sound. But it's the same sound. It's the Doppler effect. Light will do the same thing. If light of an object is coming towards you, it will look, let's say a white light will look white, but then it will shift color slightly on the spectrum. Light going away from you will also look white, but then shift. There's a red shift or a blue shift. And by looking at the stars through these wonderful telescopes, and you know that the man by the name of Hubble back, I think it was 1929, 1939, but I think it was 29, invented the enormous telescopes where it collects such light that now we can look at little pieces of the heavens with a much brighter clarity. This space telescope they have now, they named after it. But when you use that telescope and you train it at certain stars and you record the light will either have a blue shift or a red shift, telling you it's either coming toward us or moving away. And what's interesting is almost all stars are moving away. Not all of them, but almost all stars move away, indicating that there might be a beginning. And that now stars are expanding, the universe is expanding. Now that concept is interesting, but what is more interesting is that the human mind can even begin to figure and begin to think about those possibilities. To give you some concept of space, one adventure you can have between the time you're 79, 80, and 81. So it gives you, some of you, a little more time to think of this. But I was talking to my dad about this. Dad is in his late 70s. And I said, Dad, you know, when you're on your 79th birthday, do this. Go outside. That's west, right? That means that's north. Okay. Right now, if you could get where you could see the stars, and Miami is too bright, you can't hardly see stars, but if you could see stars, right in here, on the horizon, the Big Dipper is upside down right now. The Big Dipper is Ursa Major. Okay, Ursa is Latin for bears. The Big Dipper is the rump of a bear, and it goes on further to make the full constellation. But the Big Dipper here, right now it's like that. If you look at the stars in the Big Dipper, and if I have this right, it's something like 79, 79, 81, 81, 80. The light from those stars, most of them started traveling toward the Earth about 80 years ago. So many of our brothers and sisters, when you turn 80, you can go out for the first time in your life, you look at the star, and that's the way the star looked on the day you were born. And it's taken your entire lifetime for that light to be here. To put it even more perspective, in the handle, there's a star, I think it's M41. There's so many stars, they don't give names. Even the names they do have are so bizarre. They don't call them Dick and Bob. They usually have some big name. So they start numbering M41, M50, and so forth. But in the handle, there's a star that looks just past one of them. It looks like kind of a double star there, but just past it, and that star is so far away. It started traveling 510 years ago. That means just about the time that Christopher Columbus was asking Queen Isabel for permission to come to America, the light from that star started to travel to the Earth. But that's amazing, but the amazing thing is that man's mind can't comprehend that and understand it. But we're alone in that. Other animals do not have this sense of time. Other animals do not even have a sense of who they are in some cases. We were in service a couple of weeks ago. It was very funny. We were on the sunny side of the house. We knocked on the door, and the knock woke the dog up again. It's a German Shepherd dog, and it came around the corner, and it was going to protect its property. So it got low, with the shoulders up, and the hair came up on the back, and it was going to start growling. It was coming toward us, and as it walked past the double glass door there, the sliding door, it caught a glimpse of itself in the eye, in the glass, and it forgot about us because now here's this dog. Funny things don't. And the echo, it was a kind of a carpet. The echo made it just even magnified it. And so the dog kind of got scared, so it starts to back away. But when it backed away, it thought that it was scaring the other dog, and so he thought the other dog was backing away, so it lunged at it and scared himself to the same time. And I'm thinking, this dog lives here. The dog doesn't even know who he is. My grandmother in the Midwest, a lot of people in the Midwest have parakeets or budgies. The old people call them budgies, but they're little parakeets. And the trouble is, you'd like to have two parakeets, so they have company, but they're such a mess and they fight. So usually you have one parakeet. But then after a while you get feeling bad that here's this lonely parakeet, and they talk to you, but you can only talk to a parakeet so many minutes a day. So what Grandma would do is she would put a mirror. There's there's a little bone kind of wafer that you put in the wire, kind of in I think it's a fish bone of some sort, but it'll pack it down. So right above that fish bone, Grandma would put a mirror. And so the bird would be sitting there, and then you'd be watching. All of a sudden, how are you? And just talk. Just see you and get up real close and back. And then it's like, well, see you later. And we do this every day. The bird doesn't even know who he is. But we have a real sense of who we are. We can look in the mirror. Now, some days, when you're getting dressed, and especially in our city here, it's a tremendous phenomenon because we drive the Dolphin quite a bit. And I'll be driving, I'll look over, and here's this very lovely woman, but I can tell she's not spent near enough time at home because she's driving with her knees and doing all the, she do all this work back, and I can only imagine. I mean, she must have been the brush and the eyebrow. She must have a whole kit in between. But on the days, some days, because of the way things are, you do spend enough time. You have a little time to spend in the mirror, and so you look in the mirror and you have a very real sense of who you are. You look in the mirror and you can imagine, especially as time goes by, and you look and you remember what you used to look like. And with only a little bit of effort, you project what you're going to look like. And you have a very real sense of who you are and where you are in your life. And it's a gift that Jehovah has given us because he wants us to understand the nature of life as it is. But eternity is the focal point of our worship. We could say that our worship revolves around eternity. Now you'll hear us talk. In our discussion today, we're talking about the last days, the Armageddon battle. At times, if you have had Jehovah's Witnesses come to your door, they may read scriptures about the last days, and we are interested in that. But in our worship, the last days are a feature of the coming few years, but that is not where our focus is. Our focus is on eternity. We live with eternity in view. We have an idea of what's going to be happening for over 1,000 years as this earth is transformed into a paradise, and even beyond. And our worship focuses on preparing ourselves to live happily and responsibly through that whole period, not just for a few minutes or a few days. Now, it's true that Jehovah, as the great timekeeper, has events in mind that are going to take place. Matthew 1:17 is kind of interesting. It says the generations from Abraham till David were 14 generations. From David to Babylon, 14 generations. From Babylon until the Christ, 14 generations. You get this sense of the timetable and events happening. Regularly in the Bible, you hear like Galatians 4:4 says, when the full limit of the time arrived, Jesus appeared. And of course, if you read those prophecies in Daniel, you know that there was a schedule, and Jesus arrived right on time. A number of times in the book of Revelation, you'll hear the appointed time is near. The appointed time for the dead to be judged. The presence of the Christ, we're told to keep the day of Jehovah in our minds. And so that's why you'll hear us talk quite a bit about these coming events. But we would not want you to think that that means that Jehovah's Witnesses are obsessed with when the end is coming. Do that because we're told to keep Jehovah's Day in mind, but our worship is centered around eternity and our place in eternity. Obviously, the servants of God have always been eager to know, when is this part of the world, when will the suffering end so the blessings can begin? But of course, Jehovah's never told us. And as strained as we will to imagine when that's going to happen, we can only wait. And that waiting period is a very healthy thing because it allows us to prove why we're doing it. Do we simply want relief for ourselves, or do we have the human family in mind and the salvation of the human family? It's always nice, when you have yours, you kind of want the game to end. But there may be others who are just learning. And so it gives Jehovah a chance to see, well, what is your view of the end of the world? Is it simply for ourselves, or are we interested in the salvation of others? And that's very important to Jehovah. Obviously, a person who has the interest of the world in mind will make a better world citizen in the kingdom than someone who simply wants good things for themselves. That doesn't necessarily separate us from the rest of the world. I was talking to a brother today, and he said, the name of the show is Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? It should be Everybody Wants to Be a Millionaire. There's no question who wants to be a millionaire. Everybody wants to, seems these days, to want to search for wealth. But the real question is who wants to see the world a better place? And who's willing to share in that development. But we are interested in when the end is coming. There was a little boy in one of our circuits about 10 years ago, about 7 or 8 years old, and his grandfather worked with the quick buildings. And you're familiar with that. Around the country, there are a number of committees set up that brothers in an area with building skills build kingdom halls. In many areas they build one every month, with the exception of a district convention. They build entire kingdom halls. They're doing it on a Thursday or Friday, and by Sunday they're having a public talk. And our area is rather, we have it kind of nice because most building projects are within, you can wake up and decide to go on the building project that day. But not so in most of the country. It usually is a 7-8 hour drive to where the kingdom halls are. You have to have camping equipment, and it's quite an ordeal. Well, this brother, the grandpa, had been involved in the kingdom hall projects for a long, long time. And it was always talking about them, and so the little grandson was saying, Grandpa, I'd like to go with you. And of course, normally children should not be on construction sites. But in that area, because it's farming country, they'll arrange for maybe a farm a couple of miles over. A lot of the children of the workers will go there, and they will sift sand, perhaps, to get it ready for the mortar, or they might wrap silverware. Children might do that to get things ready, or put ice in the cups, and then it's trucked over. So away in a safe place, they have things for the children to do. So Grandpa was thinking about that. He says, son, I think it's time for you to go. But he says, I leave at 4:30 in the morning. And your mom and dad work, and so they can't do it. You'll have to get up on your own. He said, I'll get up there. Okay, I'll see you Thursday morning. And so he said, now I don't have time to wake you up. If you're not ready, I have to go. I'll be ready, Grandpa. So it's 4:30 in the morning. Grandpa rounds the corner and drives up close to the house, and the house is as dark as can be. No light on, no little boy on the porch. So Grandpa goes on. Build another kingdom hall and more stories and pictures, and so for the next few weeks, Grandpa's showing about how this wonderful new kingdom hall was built and how happy the brothers were and some experience, and little boy didn't fly. It feels so bad. He didn't get to go. It's his fault. He knows it's his fault. But he kept, Grandpa, could I go next time? Please, I really want to go. And so Grandpa said, son, of course you can go. I've got to, when I go, I have to go. You've got to be ready. Grandpa, I'll be ready. 4:30 in the morning, Thursday morning, gets close to the house, the porch lights on. There he is, 7-year-old boy, brand new jeans, little cowboy lunchbox, and the tools that he got from Dad's tool chest, and ready to go. So get in, son. So he gets in, sits there. A little sleepy, but they're driving. On a couple hours, they stop at Denny's for a Grand Slam or something. And all the time he keeps looking over, and the boy's doing this. But when he looks over, the boy puts his feet to he doesn't do it. So they're sitting there eating breakfast, and the grandpa looks, and there's something all in his hair. He says, son, what is in your hair? Well, the little boy, so wanting to get up, took his alarm clock, he wound it up, and he put it on the side of his head and took duct tape and he wrapped his head with that duct tape, and whenever the alarm went off, the match in his head. Well, he did it because he just did not want to miss it. He's so bad. The reason we keep looking at the signs of the times is we don't want to miss it. But we don't want you to be confused that somehow that's the focus of our life. No, not at all. We're developing our personality. We're developing our relationship with Jehovah. We're trying to understand who we are and where we are so that we can serve Jehovah for eternity. Jehovah wants us to do that. And it makes an enormous difference in our life. I was at a funeral last year, and a brother in his late 50s had died down in Kendall. I was listening to the brother give the talk. He did a wonderful job giving the talk. Very nice. And it seems as time goes on, you listen closer to funeral talks than you understand. Because as time goes by, you have this list of people you really want to see again. And you understand this process so intimately. And so I was listening to the talk, and from where I was sitting in front of me was a brother who was about 24 years older than the brother who died. This brother was in his 80s. As he sat there, he was a handsome brother, sharp features, tan, white, shocking white hair, beautiful white hair, carefully combed. Still working 2 or 3 days a week. And for a moment, my attention was away from the speaker, and I was watching this brother, his eyes sharp, listening to every scripture. Now, he's 24 years past when this brother died. Now, it's true when we go to a funeral, we're sad. We are. We don't like to lose someone at death. If you get the impression, and if you go to a funeral, you might hear greetings and so forth, but you'll also hear weeping because we've lost someone that we care about. I mean, we don't even like to see somebody go away for a while. We'll miss them. But here this brother was sharp-eyed, and he was not overwhelmed with grief. And yet he obviously was aware of his own mortality, perhaps more at that moment than usual. Why is it that he could be so optimistic and have such a clear mind when we're talking about death? Because that brother serves an eternity. We read in Micah where Micah says, Jehovah, I will serve you to time indefinite. But Micah died. Did somehow he didn't understand that? Did he think the end was coming in his day? No, his prophecies were he understood it's going to be a long way off. Well, how could he say, I'm going to serve you for time indefinite? Because he knows Jehovah's view. In the scriptures it says that Jehovah says that I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, even though he promises later that they'll be resurrected. You see, there are these memorial tombs where we are putting God's memory in his mind in his uninterrupted service. Oh, death is like sleep, we will wake up. But death is simply a small chapter in our life. A chapter that is ahead of us, of course. But when the book is finally written, it will be such a small, insignificant feature of all these wonderful things that will be written on the chapters ahead. But you see, our concept of who we are is directly affected by our view of eternity and where we're looking into the future. That's why we serve Jehovah the way we do, not because we're trying to earn some sort of salvation. We're trying to learn how to live in a global society, how to live with the human family as diverse and complex as it is. We recognize we're not going to change the world like some societies do by exterminating, genocide, where they kill everyone who's not like them. It will never be that way. It's never worked before, and it's not going to work. The world was designed for a diverse culture, a variety of people with tastes and likes and dreams. All can be happy. But you have to learn the secret of how to have the mind of Christ, to put on the Christ-like personality. And that begins to develop when we start serving with eternity view. Then serving with only just a limited view that we want to survive this end and are disgust with the system of things causes us to to look negatively at people who are reacting in certain ways. There's many other reasons why we serve Jehovah. We love people, of course. We appreciate the blessings we do have now. The Hopper mentioned it so eloquently in his prayer, the appreciation we have for the spiritual provisions, our congregation, the material things we have. And we're glad really for this opportunity to serve with this vague period of how long it's going to be till the features of the Great Tribulation begin, because we would like Jehovah to know we're doing this for the right motives. We're not doing it selfishly. We might be attracted. Peter says that because of these precious and very grand promises, we're attracted to the kingdom message. But we get beyond that as we see how the blessings will change humanity for the good and will vindicate Jehovah's sovereignty and sanctify His holy name. In spite of the wicked conditions we know we have to endure, but we find it satisfying to know that even in this world we can find a measure of happiness by applying Bible principles. And that just fascinates us to imagine what it will be like when we are unhindered by temptation or wickedness or suffering. How wonderful life will be then. And so we serve Jehovah with endless life. Your congregation has certainly done that in so many ways. Your territory is rather diverse and somewhat complicated compared to other territories in the nation. You have to comb through your territory, a variety of languages live together. We're concentrating on those who speak English. And sometimes it's challenging to go all morning long and not find anyone who speaks your language. But it doesn't surprise us. In fact, we find that your productivity is about the same as other congregations who have almost all English territory. So even though it takes maybe quite a few hours to find a healthy, the number of people who speak English, you can still place about the same number of magazines that others who are working in other territories, so that kind of territory. Your territory is a very well-educated territory too, which makes lively conversations, intelligent conversations. People have logic, you can reason with them. Conversations we've had this week have been very stimulating. People have an interest, they know the world around them, they're aware of the globe, not just their own community. Some brothers have to work in territories where the people are pretty narrow. They can only think of their part of the world. Your community that you work with has a global outlook. They've traveled the world. They've been other places. They can see that the two things that this world needs is good world government, but more importantly, good self-government. And of course, Jehovah's looking for those who have good self-government who will then live in this world government. So you do very well in your territory. We've appreciated over the last few years to see the quality of your meetings continue to improve. Your commenting was so good this week. The meeting parts were excellent. The brothers are really working on their speaking ability, and we just encourage you to keep doing that. It's very effective for us to be educated by our elders and ministerial servants as they work hard. And we certainly want to commend you for the way that you've contributed to keep your Kingdom Hall in a better way. The maintenance on the building is better than it was 3 years ago. The repairs are made more promptly. And you're also involved, many of you are involved, and you also are regional volunteers. We're working in Florida City right now, building a double Kingdom Hall. We hope that will be finished. The hope is to have it finished by late summer. And so to do that's going to require a lot of volunteers, a lot of workers, and some of you have already been down there working. You worked on the Lake Stevens project. You go to West Palm Beach to work. And we just commend you for your generosity and support of all these projects, which are so needed to educate our brothers in this area. On a personal note, we kind of hate to get to this point where we start saying goodbye to those that we've come to know and love so much. Our life has been enriched now. We have more brothers in a very real way. We've gotten to know some of you sisters. We've adopted a few more mothers and fathers and uncles. And we will remember your congregation for the many expressions of love and generosity to us personally. And we know that your new circuit overseer will just be overwhelmed. We told him these brothers will take such good care of you. the next 3 years will just fly by. Because that's certainly the way it's been for us. The time has gone so quickly, and we just are grateful that Jehovah's allowed us time to spend these few months with you. May our life and thinking indicate that we're living not around an infinite, limited existence, but eternity is in our hearts. May we always serve Jehovah with everlasting life in view. We'll meet for service in the morning at 9:15. If you'd like to stand and sing our concluding song, it's song number 129.